All right, we're seeing the numbers come up. Welcome, everyone. We'll be started momentarily, just waiting till we reach what we would consider critical mass, and that is just a good number of attendees.
Very excited to see the number going up.
Yep, good, yeah, nice. Okay, the number's still going up, that's good. Hope everyone's having a good evening and welcome. All right, I think we're there, so why don't we get started?
Right.
Good evening. Welcome to Leading Questions. I'm Alfredo Medina, Executive Director of the Office for Public Engagement.
And I'm Sheila Seery, the Vice President for Government and Community Relations.
We're your hosts for tonight's Leading Questions. Brad Hershenson was scheduled to join us this evening, but duty called, and Brad had to attend to some important responsibilities as the SUNY Student Assembly President. This evening, we're excited to present a conversation and a Q&A with 4 of UAlbany's outstanding coaches. We know you'll gain valuable insights about leadership that you could apply in your future career, in your community service, and during your studies here at UAlbany. If you have any questions for our guests, please send them through the Q&A function. The chat will not be on during the program.
So let's meet the coaches. Will Brown is the longest tenured coach in American East Conference. As the head coach of UAlbany's men's basketball team, he has led the Great Danes to 5 conference championships, 5 NCAA tournament appearances, 2 collegeinsider.com postseason tournament appearances, a CBI postseason appearance, and unparalleled success in the classroom. Both he and his team have been recognized for their exemplary sportsmanship. Coach Brown is a native of Miller Place, New York, and an alum of Dowling College. Welcome, Coach Brown.
Thank you.
All right, let's introduce our football coach, Greg Gattuso, who's in his 7th season as the head coach of our UAlbany football program. A former standout defensive lineman at Penn State, who's worked at Duquesne, Pittsburgh, and Maryland. Coach Gattuso has led the Great Danes through 6 seasons of the Colonial Athletic Association, one of the top football championship subdivision conferences in the nation. In 2019, Coach Gattuso was named Colonial Athletic Association Coach of the Year. Welcome, Coach.
Glad to be here.
Next, Colleen Mullen is the UAlbany women's basketball coach, and she is entering her 3rd season at UAlbany. In her first season at the helm, Mullen led the team to the 4th place finish and guided players Heather Foster and Kyra Frames to all conference honors. The Great Danes finished the 18-19 season with a 13-18 overall record, including a 9-7 record in the American East action. Coach Mullen arrived at UAlbany after serving as the associate head coach at Army West Point. A proven point guard as a collegiate player for both Rhode Island and New Hampshire, Coach Mullen has continued to cultivate her expertise at the guard position since entering the coaching ranks. Welcome, Coach Mullen.
Thanks so much, guys.
And last but not least, a personal friend of mine as well, Roberto Vives, is in his 36th season in the University at Albany's track and field program, the 26th season as UAlbany's Director of Track and Field and Cross Country. He has coached 148 All-America athletes and 14 individual NCAA champions. Under Coach Vives, UAlbany has won 57 American East Conference titles, 33 men's and 24 women's. He has also captured 4 IC4A titles and 3 ECAC championships. Coach Vives is a native of the Bronx, New York, and a Seton Hall alum and a track and field athlete. He was recently inducted into the Capital Region Track, Field, and Cross Country Hall of Fame. Welcome, Coach Vives.
Thank you, Alfredo. It's good to be here.
And welcome to all the coaches. But before we get started, before we go on to our conversation gets underway, we have a question for you. Tonight's poll question: What's the most important lesson that we learn from playing sports? Now, this question is for everyone out in the audience, and we have discipline, friendship, leadership, overcoming adversity, patience, resilience, respect, self-control, teamwork, or other, another one that we may have missed. So take a moment to pick the one that most connects with you, and we'll be reading off the results momentarily. All right. So let's see our results. All right, it looks like teamwork. That would make sense, right? Teamwork is leading it, followed by overcoming adversity, leadership, and tied up there with discipline. So real quickly, what are some thoughts that you can share with us, coaches, as your reactions to some of the areas that were selected? And Coach Vives, you can start with you. I see you want to jump at it, so go right at it.
Those are all great areas, but the discipline is definitely one thing that you get out of it. That work ethic to continue to move forward, and the teamwork. I have to agree with that, because you're working with people from different parts of the world and different backgrounds, etc. And you're learning to work together for a common cause.
I would jump in with the teamwork, just because I'm a big believer in chemistry, and when people work together, you feel unstoppable. And I think all those things are important that we're up there. But I think the greatest thing for our sports is the teamwork that our athletes get.
I think the good thing with all of those answers are they're all skills that you can carry with you throughout your life. Exactly. So I think that's why I'm so big on young kids playing sports, because of what you learn through sports. And if you look at those answers, there are no wrong answers. Those are life lessons that are learned through sports, and they'll be with these young kids or college age students for the rest of their life.
Thank you.
So I guess to start with the questions, and I kind of put this out there, whoever feels most comfortable kind of going at it first. And like I said, before, not everyone has to answer, but if you'd like to. Players often become coaches, but just because you're a good player doesn't mean you'll be successful as a coach. Many great players haven't excelled at coaching. We've had some examples: Wayne Gretzky, Magic Johnson, and you would know others. On the contrary, a number of journeyman players who were solid but not outstanding athletes became great coaches. Pat Riley, Chuck Noll, Bill Belichick, Phil Jackson. So what does it take to be an effective coach or leader that people will follow?
Yeah, all right, I'll start off. I think communication and trust, and I think the ability to teach. I think there's a lot of really talented individuals out there that were tremendous players, regardless of sport. But that doesn't mean that they can teach an individual or teach a group, or they're effective communicators. And then, sometimes they just don't have that patience to develop the relationships, develop the trust needed to be an effective coach or a leader.
Yes, and I agree with Coach Brown. You find people that have been, Olympic level athletes, et cetera, but many times those skills have come to them naturally. They just pick it up, they see it, and they learn it. To be a coach, you have to be able to take complex, movements and break them down into parts and be able to teach it. So that's very important. Being a teacher, being able to communicate well, being able to explain the why of things, and also being able to connect with young people.
I love to hire overachievers, along the lines what coaches are talking about. When I hire a coach, I love guys that have had to work hard to be good players, because they understand the nuances, the studying, the intelligent side of it. And they tend to get that it's not all about athletic ability. And so there's some great players out there that can just play at a high level with talent. But the really great coaches, in my experience, have been the the people that are really have to overachieve.
And I can just add, Sheila, that I think, everything that everybody said so far is really good. And I don't want to be redundant, but I just think you really have to be passionate about mentoring other people. And I know Coach Brown mentioned about being a teacher of the game and being an effective communicator, but you truly have to want to develop young people fully. And I think good players, when they first start coaching, they say, watch me do this. And you can't, some players can't just say, okay, I'm going to watch you do it. Now this is how it's going to be done. We're in the the relationship building business. And you have to be able to figure out how to lead and motivate other people. And the relationship piece is so important. And good players, again, like, Coach Vives said, is just counted on their own ability. So I truly think that you have to want the big picture and how you can lead them and develop them as people and leaders and students and future professionals and future leaders in their field, more than just on the field or on the court.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Do you find yourself coaching differently when things aren't going well during the game or when you're losing? Do you change your strategy or make any adjustments, or do you just stay the course?
I tend to rely on consistency when things get tough, and we always have to make adjustments. The sign of a great coach and coaching staff is the ability to make in-game adjustments to help when things aren't going well. But that all said, I think a consistent voice and a consistent comfort level of the coaching staff is really critical to being successful, because if you're changing things on a regular basis, then I'm not sure how committed you are to the thing that you need to do to win that game. And games are long, and you've got to stick to your core principles to be successful.
Yeah, winning is hard. Consistently winning is even harder. And I think during the course of a game, we all prepare and we want to be able to rely on our preparation. But again, you can do an awful lot of scouting and think you have the ultimate game plan in place. But you have to, as Coach Gattuso said, you have to be prepared to tweak things, to make adjustments. You can't just be all in. You've got to be prepared to make necessary adjustments as needed. And, I think that's important. Adversity shapes character. We're all going to deal with adversity throughout games and the season. And I think how we respond to that, adversity tells an awful lot about the individual, the coaches, and the players. You have to find a way. And I think that's why it's so important that when you're dealing with that adversity, that you stick together.
Yeah, I believe that, in track and field, it's all a process. So the preparation is very important, getting ready to compete. And then when you're in the actual competition, executing. I basically tell the student athletes, you've done everything, you're ready to go. My job is done. Now it's time to just execute and go out there and perform. Do what you've done already, and the results should take care of themselves.
I think a lot of times young players get worried about failure, and they're afraid to risk and put themselves out there. But when you I talk a lot, and our staff talks a lot about basketball as the game of mistakes. You got to learn to accept that there's going to be mistakes in the game. There's no game that has no turnovers or no missed shots. So and practicing that and accepting that and being okay with that and learning from it. I think it allows you to handle those pressure situations and understand that in practice, you're prepared for these, to execute under pressure, to execute when things aren't going your way, and to stay focused to that.
All right, thank you.
How do you, and you touched upon this, Coach Brown, adversity shapes character, and no one was prepared for this pandemic. COVID-19 being really, you've been preparing for season, all of you, just this uncertainty. And then there's things, to other issues where, you have a key player or players get injured, and you have to readjust. Can you talk to how you deal with these issues and these circumstances and get your team, mentally prepared to go forward?
Sure. Well, during this pandemic, we've talked to our kids an awful lot of let's control what we can control. Might not be able to control too much, but let's control what we can control. As simple as wearing a mask, social and physical distance, washing your hands. You know, those are things that we've talked to our guys about. You know, and then the other thing is, you know, tough times don't last, you know, but, you know, tough individuals do. You know, so we've just got to, you know, stay the course and go and rely on, you know, control the controllables. You know, as far as injuries and losing a key player, that's something that's out of our control. It's unfortunate, but I think when you have an injury, it creates opportunity for someone else. And that's why we always tell our guys, you know, to be prepared. You know, you prepare like you're a starter, you prepare like you're a heavy minute guy. And, you know, when your time comes, embrace that opportunity, make the most of it, because you never know when that next opportunity is going to come. So when you have the opportunity, embrace it, you know, and run with it. But, you know, you're right. These are tough times. And that's why we really do need to stick together.
Yes, this pandemic has been something like I've never experienced in all of my years of coaching. But one of the most important things is to know that you're the leader, that your student athletes are looking up to you for your leadership. So you basically have to stay positive. You have to continue to reassure them. And as Coach Brown says, you know, that we're going to be better because we went through this process. There's things that we can't control, but let's work on the things that we can control. And let's look to move forward and be prepared when the time comes when we get back to some level of normalcy.
I think it's okay too to validate people's feelings when things happen out of your control. It creates fear and anxiety. And I think it's okay to say, hey, listen, it's a difficult situation. And what we're facing here is not ideal. And it's okay to be worried about it because you don't know what's going to happen in front of you. But taking advantage and keeping a positive attitude. And I can't stress enough as a leader, and everyone is looking at you, but to keep consistency, to keep it normal, to use humor, to make people laugh. I mean, I try to make my players laugh all the time and I don't get a lot of laughs out of it, but you know, because Zoom is, everyone's on mute, so there's not a lot of laughs. So, but I think just staying true to who you are and making sure that you're focusing on controlling what you can and learning from every experience and making it as positive as you can. It is what it is. So how can we move forward and prepare our team and each other for success? And what can we focus on to move towards our goals of being a successful program?
I agree with Coach Brown. I mean, the controllables is a huge thing for us. But one of the things that we use as a motto at football, which we've really liked, is win the day. You know, we want our kids to go out every day, go to class, do the right things, be courteous to people on campus, say hello, hold the door. You know, the things that's within their control. And I always tell them at the end of the night, if you go to bed and lay down on a pillow and you know you've had a good day and you've worked hard, that you won the day. And now we're just going to get a good sleep and get up and do it again tomorrow. And I think that's the only thing that can get you through these. This is, you know, like Roberto said, Roberto and I are probably old fogies on this thing. And there's just no precedent for this. There's no plan. Someone hasn't gone through this to tell us what to do. And we all have different plans. But the cool thing when you talk to the coaches for me is we all have that mentality of, you know, take care of the kids, make sure they're doing well, and then encourage them to continue to win the day.
I love that, win the day. That's and all that common courtesy and kindness. There's not enough of that in the world, and putting that out there, it will be returned. So no, thank you for that.
Well, you know, it's funny too. Like sometimes I hold a door, people don't know what to do. You know what I mean? And that scares me. That, you know, it really scares me sometimes when you're doing something nice for somebody that they're cautious. You know, we take the team to the movie and I always have a couple extra tickets and I can't give them to anybody afterwards. They think I got some kind of game going on, you know? So it's courtesy is a lost thing anymore. And it's sad. I hope it can come back.
Sheila, Coach Gattuso is very intimidating. I would not take movie tickets from him or let him hold the door for me.
You are tougher on Zoom than you are in person.
There's no doubt about that. I don't know when
Zoom, but not in person.
I don't know when I'm going to see you again, so I can talk trash right now.
Oh, you'll see me Monday now. I promise that.
Very good.
Um, all right. Well, Coach Gattuso, I'll take those tickets off you. You look like somebody who reminds me of my dad. You seem very stern and funny at the same time. So thank you. We're on this topic of communication. What role does communication play in coaching and ultimately in leading anyone or any organization? I mean, we'll start with you, Coach Gattuso. I'll give you the floor.
It's a single, I tell my coaches every day, and you could ask any one of them, I want every bit of information they can feed me. They never bother me with text messages or get me the information. Let me decide what I want to act on and what I don't want to act on. And I think that communication that we have on our staff is when you have 100 football players and you're recruiting, we have to recruit 300 football players sometimes to get 15 to come to Albany. And so if we don't communicate in recruiting with our players academically, in the community and community service, on the football field, you cannot be successful without a premium on communication.
Yeah, I think the only thing worse than a lack of communication is no communication. And this is something that we talk to our student athletes about all of the times. When you get young kids, especially freshmen, new to your program, you have to help them develop that skill. I think the more you talk with them, the more conversations you have with them, put them in positions where they might be a little bit uncomfortable, but they're forced to communicate. And that's how they get comfortable, by doing it and doing it over and over and over. And let's face it, as they get older and move forward and enter the real world, they're going to have to develop that skill, and they're going to have to get good at communicating with people. So, again, it's an emphasis in our program. I'm sure all 4 coaches feel the same way. You can never communicate enough.
I think when there's a void of communication, people tend to fill it up with negativity. So if you're not having direct conversations with your players, your employees, they could be filling it up with, oh, I'm not doing it right, or coach doesn't like me, or coach doesn't think I'm doing a good job. And I think to over communicate, to Coach Brown's point, is so important. And I also think a really important part of communication and being an effective communicator and to build relationships is to be a great listener. And I think sometimes people forget that in communication, you have to really listen, and you have to listen to your players. You have to listen to your employees and your staff members, and hear where their perspectives are. And you'll learn a lot more, and you'll learn a lot of what direction you need to go in, and by being a great listener.
Yes, communication is the key to success. And, as Coach Mullen says, listening is an important skill in that. There's some coaches that, like to hear themselves talk. And I think it's important to be able to listen to your student athletes, listen to your coaches, find out what makes them tick. When we're on a bus trip, 3 hours somewhere, I try to get around and talk to each of the student athletes and ask them, what's your goals for today? What are you looking to do? How are you feeling? Those type of things. And be able to connect. And the communication starts right through the recruiting process, all the way till they graduate and beyond. You continue to communicate with them as alums, when they get married, and parents, and that sort of thing. So communication is key to success in all organizations.
And Sheila, real quick, it's funny, my father was a longtime coach, and he used to say all the time that listening is a skill. And it's a skill that needs to get developed. And, that's something that, again, I talk to my players about all the time. And Coach Mullen makes an outstanding point. As much as we talk about communication, listening is just as important, if not more, than talking. So.
No, thank you for all of those answers and all that guidance. I think all of us being able to translate that. And another thing you could help us translate is, how do you, in high pressure situations that you all find yourself in, how do you keep your cool? How, I know I coached years ago, fifth and sixth graders, and I was like a lunatic. I was a lunatic, and there was no stakes in it. So how do you keep your calm? How do you channel all that in a positive way to get to a victory?
believe me, Sheila, we're all lunatics. You know, we're all nervous, we're anxious before competitions, before meets, but we learn to become good actors. So when you go out there, you know that your student athletes are taking their cues from you. So if you look nervous, if you're pacing back and forth, if you're all of a sudden so quiet and you look anxious, that's gonna, you know, land on them, and they're gonna be anxious and nervous and not produce. So you really have to be calm in those type of situations.
I think something else is when you get in high pressure situations, whether you're a coach or a player, you need to be able to trust and rely on your preparation. You know, you try to make practice more difficult than a game, put your team in tough situations. So if they do make mistakes or they don't respond the way you want them to respond, it happens in practice. But to Roberto's point, these kids are always looking at us. If we show any sign of panic, they're going to panic. If we show that, even if we're acting or faking it, that, you know, we're calm, cool, you know, there's a good chance that, you know, they'll feel the same way.
I think too, to that point of preparing your team in practice and being prepared, part of that for me is practice in terms of me in those situations. So in practice, I, you know, have my players run 5-on-0 and I practice calling out plays. I practice looking who's on the floor to see, okay, what play would I want to run here? And they may not know that I'm doing that, but I'm actually practicing coaching when I'm in practice. And I think sometimes they think that they're the ones that practice, and I know I have my practice plan, but in those moments, I'm trying to put myself in a situation of, okay, what do I do now? I have 2 seconds to decide this, and now I need to call out a play, or I need to think about what I want to do in this situation. And I think putting yourself in those positions of practice, I mean, my dad used to always tell me, there's only one way to get to Carnegie Hall: practice, practice, practice. So that's kind of how I built, you know, my philosophies on that. So putting myself in the position, just like asking my players to do the same.
I love that. You're a lifelong learner.
Mhm.
Right.
I love what I love about coaching is, to me, even though if you've been at a football game, you certainly see some emotion from the head coach and some yelling at the refs and things like that. And I'm big on holding people accountable to doing their jobs, but it's like chess to me. And as a football coach, you know, you can't play chess angry or emotional or frustrated. You know, my job on the sideline is to make sure I'm 2-3 steps ahead of the play, to make sure that, you know, if we're going to go for it, if we're going to punt, if we're going to, you know, whatever, there's so much that goes into football that way of strategy. So even though I may seem like I'm yelling at an official, you know, the thing that's, my coaches always laugh because I can go from yelling at an official to the next play like that. And that's, to me, is just experience, and it's being around. So I've learned from some great people. And I know in my business, in our business is coaching, every one of us, we're all thieves and influenced by great people. And I've had some great mentors that have taught me the importance of being cool in critical moments. You can't be successful without it.
And I think it's obvious for Coach Gattuso that he doesn't sound like he's afraid of failure when he's talking. And I think in those pressure situations, and I think that holds people back in big organizations and big jobs, when you are afraid that you're going to fail, or you're not going to make the right call, or you're not going to, you know, go for the, you know, the 2-point conversion, or whatever decision you're going to make, that the game's on the line, that you're confident in your skills and what you've done to that point, to know that it's okay. You may not make the right call. You know, it's not always the right call. And that's the beauty of sports. You know, you try to do the best that you can in the moment, and it's okay if you fail. It's okay. And then to be able to show your players or your organization, hey, listen, maybe I didn't make the right call right there. Maybe I didn't do that. I'm accountable for that. Or, you know, maybe I could have done that different. I think it's okay to show vulnerability as a coach, but you can't be afraid to fail, or else the pressure, you'll show your players that pressure.
I think that's a really fabulous point, because that's the difference between a great head coach and a great leader. I always feel like great head coaches in sports could be great leaders, and vice versa. People that are successful in life make great coaches, because it comes down to decision making at critical times. And if you have no fear, and there's an arrogance that goes with it. You know, I know, you know, I don't care what anybody says, you know, if you're not a little arrogant or a little bit, I won't use that terminology, but if you're not hard nosed and tough, and you're not willing to stand on that line and make a tough call, you're not going to be a great head coach or a great leader.
And Sheila, I think if we're not making mistakes and we don't experience failure, then we're doing something wrong, in my opinion. I think Colleen makes a really good point.
Well, thank you all for those responses. And it's really our time now for the lightning round. And coaches, I want you to think of this as your 2-minute warning before we go to our audience for their Q&A. But what we want here is your rapid response to a series of quick fire questions. And so to make this easier, how I'm going to handle it is I'm going to base it on how you appear on my Zoom window. So it's Vives, Mullen, Brown, Gattuso, in that order. All right. So I'm going to ask you the first question. All right. So we'll start with you, Roberto, and then Mullen, Brown, Gattuso. If you could talk shop with any coach ever, who would it be?
Oh, jeez.
Chuck Noll.
All right, Chuck Noll. Go ahead, Greg.
I got lost.
That's
there.
right. We're going
Roberto's choking. You're
John
supposed to
Wooden.
be
I
calling
choked.
the pressure, Roberto.
say it again, Coach Brown.
John Wooden, I had a chance.
John
You
Wooden.
went out of turn, coach.
I know, I beat you to the punch.
Bill
I was
Belichick.
trying to save
Bill
my man
Belichick?
Roberto there.
Real Belichick. Roberto.
Tom Telez, he was a longtime coach, Carl Lewis coach at the University of Houston.
All right, thank you. You know what? Since I'm gonna let you guys just jump in there. Makes it a lot easier. I don't want to stump you again, Roberto. Olympic medal or conference championship?
Olympic medal.
Conference championship.
Olympic medal.
Olympic medal.
Olympic medal.
All right. So Coach Gattuso wants that conference championship.
It's all about the team.
Best athlete of all time.
Larry Bird.
Michael Jordan.
Michael Jordan.
Michael Jordan.
I'm going Larry Bird. Grew up.
I love Larry Bird. I grew up in Boston, so I love Larry
Yeah.
Bird. Kevin McHale.
All right. What sport would you play if not your own?
Basketball.
Basketball.
Tennis.
Golf.
Oh, all right. Subject you like best in college?
An academic course?
Yeah.
Anthropology.
Basketball.
Basketball. Okay.
Basket weaving.
You can tell what Coach
I
Gattuso
can tell the
and I were doing
coaches-
in college.
You know what? Honestly, the best course I ever had was a class on Catholicism. Believe it or not, at Penn State, it was the most interesting class I've ever had in my entire life. It was
All right.
amazing. So I'll say Catholicism.
All right.
I had a class like that at Seton Hall. It was called The Meaning of Belief with Father Cafone. So I still remember 40 years later.
Yeah, it was the most interesting thing I've ever done
Exactly.
academically.
Yeah, any of my marketing management classes I had with Dr. Shapiro in college were terrific. So
All right. Thank you.
So I think we're at the point where we're going to open the questions up to the audience.
Right. And I have our first question. And I think this goes to all the coaches, is from Gary. How has the pandemic affected your students? Often we hear professional athletes say it helps them to play the game and all is good between the lines. Do you think time spent practicing with their teammates helped to give your players a sense of normalcy?
I think so, and I think that's been one of the hardest things that's hit my kids is not playing games, but just not being together.
Yes, I agree with that. Practicing has been very good for them mentally, to be out with each other and to support each other. And now our practices have become like a track meet. They're cheering for each other and really into it and that sort of thing. So it's been good.
yeah, I think from the mental and physical health standpoint, them being on the court, working together, as Greg said, it's not even the games. It's just being together on the court, working together as one unit. That's their outlet, their release, and that's been taken away from them. And I think it's been very frustrating, for our guys. They understand why it's been taken away, but it doesn't make it any better in their minds. So
I think the pandemic has just changed everything, and everything is different for them. And being a student athlete right now, and with the pressures that they have with school and not being able to socialize the way they normally are, basketball or being part of their sport and being part of their team is what is normal for them, is what gives them balance. What helps them prioritize their day and manage their time. And it's without that, it's very difficult. But as coaches, we've had to learn to be really creative and flexible, and try to make sure that they're feeling supported and have the resources to still be successful when they're not on the court. But when they are between the lines and they have that practice, I think it's really good for their mental health.
All right. A follow-up to that first question, and this is from Rosemary. How can you keep student athletes motivated during COVID when they're unable to see their teammates or practice together?
I stay away from telling jokes because it doesn't seem to have worked. They're not biting on it. No, I think it's just trying to create a schedule for them. They're used to, as much as they say they don't want a routine, they like the routine, trying to keep things. I know we're all zoomed out, and I know all of us coaches have created different ways to keep them focused. For instance, today we did a whiteboard session where we went over our offenses that we've been working on during what would be our practice time, keeping study hall, helping them, organize and manage their day, and give them the resources to stay in shape, and do exercises on their own, so that they have that assistance from us and that support, so that they can continue to have a routine in their day and feel like things are somewhat normal in very unprecedented times.
This next question is from Jalen to Coach Gattuso. How will the university handle walk-on tryouts due to COVID for incoming freshmen or any other students who would like an opportunity to showcase their skills and potentially join the team?
Well, quite honestly, the way we like to work with walk-ons is we don't do tryouts, but we do have, when a kid wants to walk on the team, they kind of work with the team for a year before they have the opportunity to join in spring practice and start getting a chance to show what they can do. So we have young men that join and are filmers for us or work around the field and do different things like that. Tryouts get to be a mess, and there's always injury risk and just things that we don't, I'm just not really a big fan of. But we love when guys want to come out and work with the team, and then we get to see their work ethic. Are they going to work? And they going to be there every day? Do they show up on time? Timeliness is a big thing for us in everything we do. And so when guys want to walk on and they come to our office, and they're welcome, anybody that's interested, Jalen, if you're interested, come on over to the office when we get back in the office, and we'll put you to work, and then you show us you can do it, and then you'll have an opportunity to try to join the team at a later date.
All right,
thank you for your question.
This question is from Yanni, for any of the coaches. How has the pandemic forced you to adapt to new procedures?
That's a great question, because like every day is a new procedure, and that's kind of goes along with what we were talking about. I mean, it's one day we're dropping samples here, and one day over here, and I have to say this, and I know the coach will agree, but our medical people in our athletic department have done a stellar job of our strength and conditioning to make this a lot easier on us as coaches to help guide us. I don't know what I would do if I wasn't calling Jay Geiger all the time, or Pat Mars, and the people that I deal with. And they've done an exceptional job. So Kara, White, and athletic department, everybody's really pitched in to try to keep us on, because it is an amazing challenge for everybody in every walk of life, and it's no easier in athletics.
I think every day is a new day, and each day presents new challenges. I think today for us was the first day of new testing for men's and women's basketball. We had been doing it differently the past few weeks, so again, that's something new for the coaching staff and the student athletes. And we've had a few pauses in athletics, so there's been challenges in regards to starting to work out again, then no workouts. So just kids having to, and coaches constantly adapting and, adjusting. But that's what we do. And it's the world we live in right now. So, every day is a new day and we need to be ready for, something new.
This question is from Jordan. Has Zoom taught you any new coaching techniques?
It makes me hope that we get a vaccine really soon. I can tell you that.
And I think some of the student athletes might like that mute button.
All right.
It's funny. I had to put a rule in place with our team. I have Zoom rules now, something I never thought I'd ever even heard of or comprehend, but your camera has to be on. You have to be sitting up. You have to have your eye. You know what I mean? Like
Yes.
you think that that's easy, but it's not all the time. And I know, we set these rules down because my first meeting on Zoom, I was yelling at everybody on the Zoom, pay attention, put your camera on. What are you looking at? So I think it's helped, but Zooming is tough. I don't envy them trying to get their academics done this way. It's tough.
A serious question though did any of you ever use Zoom before the pandemic?
Oh,
'Cause I'll be honest with you, I never used it. I never heard of it. I wish I bought stock in it, but
never heard of it.
okay.
Zoom was when the Z receiver motions across the formation for me. So, I never heard of it prior to this.
All right. This question is from Coral. Do you have any internships or jobs for undergraduate students? And is there anything available for next semester?
I think Coach Gattuso mentioned this earlier. I know it was catered towards walk-ons, but I think we're always looking for good people who are willing to commit, that have an interest in our sport, that want to be a part of our program. But as Coach Gattuso said, you're looking for somebody that's committed, a strong work ethic, and somebody that we all want to be around, coaches, our student athletes, but we're always looking for managers or individuals that think they might want to coach down the road and they want to have an opportunity maybe to learn the ins and outs from me, my staff. I really love being around young people that want to coach, and if we can help make that possible, we'd love to do so.
Yeah, same thing with track and field. We have 110 student athletes on the team. So anyone that's interested in being a manager, want to be a coach in the future, want to help director of ops, issuing uniforms, doing things like that, traveling, giving out room keys when we're out on the road, those type of things to learn management skills and that type of thing. We have an open door. But again, we look for people that are serious and committed. Because, you have the situation of person that come 1 week and then you don't see them again. We need serious, committed people.
We had a young lady join us as a volunteer, Diana. Diana spent within 30 days, she was running our staff in our office, all on a volunteer basis. The next year she was promoted and was able to earn some money. And then now she's working for the Washington Redskins. She's an amazing, dynamic person who walked in and through force of will she's going to be something in the NFL someday. She's an amazing individual. So it can work and it can happen if you have that kind of drive and that type of commitment, because athletics hours are crazy, the amount of time that we spend. And when you're not getting paid for it, it's even crazier.
Right.
And to follow up with Coach Gattuso just said, we have a former manager who came in as a freshman and asked me if he can volunteer, Ty Conyers. Well, since he's graduated, Ty has worked for the San Antonio Spurs, and he just got hired by the Atlanta Hawks about a month ago. So, again, you never know what can happen. And Ty came in and just really worked hard, embraced our program, did anything we asked him to do. And now he's on his way to have an outstanding career in the world of basketball at the highest level.
This kind of ties into parts of what both you, Coach Brown and Coach Gattuso, you've been talking about. But this question is from Lauren, and maybe others can add a little bit more to this. Do you have any advice for those looking to pursue a career in the sports industry? Anything, other advice that you would lend to some of the things you just mentioned?
I would say network, meet as many people as you can, stay in touch with those people. That's one of the things that Ty Conyers, who I just talked about, did a great job of. When he started going to the Final Four, everybody he met, he would send a note to, he would stay in constant communication, with them. And so I think networking is huge. And if you get an opportunity, that first opportunity, and make sure you embrace it, because you never know if another one is gonna, come your way. So make the most of that initial opportunity. But the networking piece, I think, is crucial.
I would say don't be bashful and be willing to work. It's not easy. And the best reference you're going to get is from one of us on your resume if you're trying to move forward. And there's nothing better than having a college coach telling an employer that, in Diana's case, she was irreplaceable for us. Don't be shy and go to work, and you'll have a chance for success.
Exactly.
And Alfredo, one other thing that I think is important, whatever your role is, if your job is to do the laundry, be a star in your role. People are always watching. The problem is when you're asked to do the laundry, more often than not, that person wants to be the head coach. They want to skip the process. Right. And I think if you're a star in your role, you will get noticed. And like Coach Gattuso said, if you're working for me or Coach Mullen or Coach Vives or Coach Gattuso, we're the individuals that are going to be making the phone calls, writing the letter of recommendation for you. And if you do a good job, we're going to notice it. Take advantage of that opportunity.
Exactly.
This question.
Coach Brown just texted me and told me to smile.
This is why
that wasn't very nice, Coach Brown.
This is why no one will take the movie tickets from him. He's scary.
Did you smile when you opened the door?
He's not going to smile when he sees me on Monday.
All I'm going to say. I'll see you Monday. So I'm just going to leave it. Me and Coach Sweeney will be over to see you Monday.
Yeah, I might take a personal day on Monday.
Yeah.
What were you?
I know where you live.
What were you each like as initial coaches, first year coaches? What were you, what would you how would you describe yourself and kind of what your journey's been like since that first time being a coach? I guess maybe if you talk to that person, what would you say to that person?
Don't be so volatile and smile more.
Yeah, you know what, Sheila, I'll go back to when I was an assistant at Albany, which was for a short period of time. And then I became the interim head coach that same season. I think as an assistant, you think that you have all the answers and you fire off all these suggestions that you legitimately believe the head coach should do. And then you move over 6 inches to a foot and you become the head coach and you realize it's not that easy. And that, boy, when you were an assistant, you had some really bad suggestions.
Yes, and it's all a process. I started coaching at a real young age, 14 years old, and I started to run track. I started to coach. I'm the oldest of 7 brothers and sisters, so I started, working with them, coaching them. I coached my 9-year-old brother to a 3rd place finish in a national championship in a mile. Ran under 6 minutes for a mile as a 9-year-old. But I didn't know what I was doing. You learned as you went on, as you picked up more experience, etc. And coached on the high school level. Then I coached the club for 10 years, and then been here at the University at Albany. But it's all been a process, and you learn through each part of the process. And learning never ends. You continue to go to symposiums and workshops. You continue to observe other coaches. You continue to pick up things in your travels and things like that. So it's a lifelong experience.
I think, I have the least amount of experience for the many years and much success that the three other coaches have in this webinar right now. But for me, and especially from a perspective as a woman, it's a lot different for women. And I think because we are so focused on proving our worth and having to be so prepared and showing that we are prepared and we can do the job before we have the opportunity. And I think a lot of times men are like, give me the opportunity and I'll show you how prepared I am. And I think as I've gotten older, and more mature as an assistant coach, and I think luckily I had the opportunity to be the director of operations, be a graduate assistant and work my way up and work at different levels and do all of the jobs. I have an appreciation for every little thing, whether it is doing the laundry and being a star in that role, and understanding how valuable the people around you and how important it is to have people that are smarter and have a different perspective than you to make you a stronger leader. And then I think for me, just raising my hand and not being afraid. And I encourage the women that are watching this to take opportunities and not to be afraid of those chances and feel like, oh, maybe I'm not prepared. I'll be honest, I got hired. I don't know how I pulled the wool over Mark Benson's eyes to hire me. But he did. And, I thought I was prepared, and then I'm here and I'm not, I'm still learning. And I think that's okay, because we're never going to have all the answers and be right, but you have to be able to be authentic. And I think when you're a younger person, you're so worried about what other people think about you, that you can't really be yourself. And if you're not yourself, if you're not your genuine self, if you're not authentic to who you are, and you don't allow other people to see you and show being vulnerable is okay. Women don't like to show that, I think, because of the persona that, oh, women are more emotional or whatever. It's okay. It's okay. But you just have to know yourself and know your strengths, know your weaknesses, and then continue to develop those. And I think that I have every area is an area of weakness that I can constantly grow and develop in. And that's okay. I'm okay with that because I'm comfortable in my own skin. I certainly don't think I have all the answers, but I do encourage people to take those opportunities and raise their hand and be the hardest worker in the room, for sure.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, that was a question I was about to ask you, Coach Mullen, and we must have been telepathic here. You must have read my mind and basically answered what I was going to ask you in terms of what advice you would give. And I think your response was on point. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
I did want to ask one question from a student here, Noreen. And that is, I'm just as curious too. How did you get into sports? And what made you fall in love with the one that you chose?
I fell in by default. Growing up in the South Bronx and the projects, basketball is the #1 sport. Tiny Archibald came from my neighborhood. So we would see them regularly practicing and playing every day. But when I got to high school, I was 5 feet tall. I tried out for basketball. They told me, no, you're not good enough. And I joined the track team, and the rest was history.
Yeah, I think my father was a long-time high school basketball coach. So I grew up in a gym and I was around the game from the time I could walk. So I naturally gravitated, towards the game, and provided me with an opportunity to spend an awful lot of time with my father. And I actually played for my father. So that was quite interesting. I'm actually coaching my son right now at Albany, who's a freshman. So now I'm feeling my father's pain from back in the day. So that's how I got my start.
When you grow up in Western Pennsylvania and with 2 older brothers, you automatically are going to play sports. And I was actually a basketball player, but I tell everybody, I kind of grew wide instead of tall. So I ended up in football, but it's been great for me. And I do miss basketball. Coach Brown, if you ever need a volunteer assistant, I tell you, I'd love to do it. And I miss basketball greatly, but football's been very good to me for sure.
You're hired.
I mean, I know that low post area really well.
I got into basketball because what 5'2" person doesn't want to play basketball? I mean, it doesn't make sense. I mean, they kicked me out of gymnastics. I wasn't really good at soccer. So No, I just was motivated by, oh, you don't think I can do it? Watch me. You don't think I can do it? Watch me. And I just fell in love with the sport. And I loved practicing. It gave me back way more than I ever put into it. And I knew that the lasting impact a coach has on a player, I wanted to give that back, and I wanted to pay that forward as a coach.
All right. Well, it looks like we're pretty much run out of time. Pretty much on the dot, as our producer behind the scenes, Mary Hunt, sends me signals on staying on time. So let me just first want to thank all of you, Coaches Brown, Gattuso, Mullen, Vives. I just love your passion and your energy and what you represent for the University at Albany. So thank you for sharing your insights with us today, and more importantly, with our students who are here. And we've had a great audience. So I'm sure that many of them are digesting all the great information you've shared. I'd also like to thank them for their outstanding leadership and for representing all of us here, both on and off the field. And also to the entire athletic staff who was really pitched in this year, wherever they were needed, as we dealt with and continued to deal with the challenges of the pandemic. And we're very grateful to all of them, and also for your leadership. We'll all look forward to getting back into the stands and again to root for our Great Dane teams very soon. So again, let's hope that to what Coach Gattuso was saying, that we get this vaccine so we can get back to some normalcy. In the meantime, I want to just thank our Leading Questions campus partners, and that is the Center for Leadership and Service, the Center for Women in Government and Civil Society, the Community and Public Service Program, the Division of Student Affairs, the Office of Government and Community Relations, the School of Criminal Justice, the Student Association, and last but not least, the people who keep this Zoom platform steady and flowing, and that is our ITS field support. And also my co-host, Sheila Seery, her first one, and Sheila, I think you did phenomenal.
Thank you.
And thank you to everyone out there for joining us. We'll be back in the new year in February when the new semester starts with another edition of Leading Questions. To all the students that are out there, good luck with your finals, and have a happy and healthy Thanksgiving. Good night, everyone.
Go good.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right, take care.